Oh, allora ragazzi, c'è un'altra cosa di cui vi voglio parlare, che diciamo ne sono venuto a conoscenza solo recentemente. Come sapete, io fra un po' vorrò iniziare un po' di esplorazione di vari giochi da tavolo, wargame, di varia natura, ok? Un po' tra il gioco da tavolo e la pittura, qualcuno più da una parte, qualcuno più dall'altro, vorrò iniziare a esplorare. Sono venuto a conoscenza di questo nuovo gioco, che a quanto pare è un progetto Kickstarter, in realtà, che si chiama Trench Crusade. Non ne so molto, ok? Perciò ho pensato di fare una cosa, cioè di mostrarlo anche a voi, perché magari molti di voi non sanno di che si tratta, e penso di farla in due tempi, ovvero ho trovato dei video che sono quello ufficiale del lancio del Kickstarter, un video di Tabletop Time che fa un'infarinata generale un po' di tutto, e un video delle miniature proprio di tutte quante le fazioni. Per Flavio, grazie mille della sabbia in regalo, oltretutto. E non è Warhammer 40.000, no, è un'altra cosa, ok? Però mi è interessato, volevo vedere di che si tratta. Perciò, per chi ne sa qualcosa ma vuole approfondire, io perché non ne so niente ancora, e per chi non ne sa niente come me, adesso volevo vedere un po' di cose insieme a voi, d'accordo? E poi, più in là, ho già chiesto, c'è un content creator italiano che ha fatto un video bello lunghetto di tutta quanta la lore spiegata. Non lo vedremo oggi, ma lo vedremo probabilmente nei prossimi giorni, ok? Per ora facciamo l'infarinata generale proprio per vedere il gioco, le miniature, un accenno di lore, come funziona, eccetera. Ok, quindi stoppiamo l'audio, ecco qua, ci siamo. È Core96, sì, proprio lui. Gliel'ho proprio chiesto se posso fare la reaction e mi ha detto di sì. Non la facciamo oggi, la faremo più in là perché quella è solo per la lore. Ma intanto cominciamo con... questo è il video ufficiale del lancio del Kickstarter. Dura 2 minuti.
Long ago, during the First Crusade, a heretical band of Templars dared defy the Almighty. Casting aside their sacred vows, they opened a gate of hell at the very heart of Jerusalem. Outpoured the legions of the damned, and the world burned. Know then that it is the year of our Lord, 1914, and the flames of war still rage. This is
Trench Crusade.
From the heretical mind of Mike Francina comes a skirmish wargame set in a horrifying alternate timeline where the armies of hell clash with the forces of the faithful in a battle to decide the fate of all creation. With rules
Sembra figo,
and law by the acclaimed Tuomas
Molto
Pirinen,
cattivo.
designer of Mordheim and Warhammer 6th edition. Experience brutal and bloody trench combat in one-off games and narrative campaigns.
Oh, scusate un secondo, ho capito bene?
Pirinen, designer of Mordheim and Warhammer
Il
6th
designer
edition.
è il designer di Mordheim e della sesta edizione di Warhammer. Oh, attenzione, quindi abbiamo un autore di pregio che lo sta facendo. Questo non lo sapevo, per esempio. Bene, sono molto più interessato di prima. Perfetto.
Experience brutal and bloody trench combat in one-off games and narrative campaigns as you take command of any of the 6 different factions in a grim, dark world sculpted by James Sheriff and some of the greatest creative minds.
Ok, questo era il video del Kickstarter, d'accordo? Prossimo video che vediamo sono, quasi quasi forse è il caso di prima vedere una carrellata di miniature, ok? No, forse no, perché prima è meglio spiegare le varie fazioni, la lore e le varie cosette. Credo che sia la cosa migliore. Ok. Vediamo un po', questo è il video di Tabletop Time. Vediamo un po'.
If you're invested in tabletop gaming, you have probably heard the name Trench Crusade thrown around a lot lately.
People have been asking us to explore this new game, so we're going to check it out and find out how you can get started with Trench Crusade.
That's right, we're going to be looking at the factions, the lore,
John Blanche,
and the
quello del
history,
vecchio
and
Warhammer, quello
also
veramente grimdark. Sì, mi sembrava di riconoscere il nome, infatti,
into what makes the world of Trench Crusade
come
so
illustratore.
appealing. And we're going to be dipping our toes into the world as well.
It's tabletop time. So let's start with an overview. Trench Crusade is a skirmish
Elvis in realtà, grazie dei follow.
that pits players against each other in a blasphemous World War I era game.
It boasts 6 unique factions, each with their own distinct take.
Allora, questo è ambientato in una realtà alternativa della Prima Guerra Mondiale, in cui in realtà durante le crociate qualcuno ha fatto qualcosa che non doveva fare e sono venuti fuori i demoni, e da allora c'è stata un'eterna lotta fra le forze demoniache e quelle, diciamo, dei fedeli, fino alla Prima Guerra Mondiale, praticamente. E quindi quello Trench Crusade è una versione praticamente religioso-demoniaca della Prima Guerra Mondiale. Figo.
On the faithful worshippers of the Lord,
Ciao,
or
Arsun.
the dark followers of hell.
As a skirmish game, players can collect small warbands of 6 to 15 models, and the game is designed
Sì,
to
su
play
Twitch siamo in
as
16
standalone
noni.
missions or thrive as a campaign experience.
And there is some serious
La stupenda è che non ci sono buoni, neanche in Warhammer 40.000 in
It's been created
effetti.
by renowned artist Mike Francina and rules crafted by Thomas Pyrenees.
Prima guerra mondiale di Blasphemous, più o meno.
And sorry to both of you if I pronounced your names incorrectly. It is grim and dark in the truest sense, with imagery that is both evocative and at times disturbing, painting a picture of a world that has been in a constant state of religious war and torment for 800 years. Initially, the disturbing setting kept me at bay, but after getting sick and playing Blasphemous over the weekend, well...
Oh, guarda, l'hanno citato addirittura nel video. Avevate ragione.
Oh my god, I get it.
So we're going to be dividing this video up into chapters, or more thematically, testaments.
Crociati qui sono ancora più disturbati dei demoni. Ma mi ricorda un po' la...
From the outside,
diciamo, l'Adeptus Sororite di 40.000.
Was World War I, but demons. And while there is some truth to that, there is also a lot more nuance. Trench Crusade does take place in 1914, but the unique history of the game world and setting render the date so disconnected from a concept of World War I that it could really be set anytime. There is a Trench Crusade lore primer on their website if you want to read it in depth, but let me cover the core elements.
Ah, ok, si può scaricare liberamente dal sito allora.
Che
grazie del follow.
Jerusalem stumbled upon ancient crypts and buried secret chambers. Within these forgotten places, the knights committed the ultimate heresy, finding dark artifacts and communing with demons directly. Their betrayal caused a portal to hell to open up, and the city of Jerusalem was destroyed. Armies from hell pour forth and rapidly conquer the surrounding territory, establishing a breachhead for the forces of evil. Jerusalem is destroyed and the gates of hell are open, and the holy prayers of the Islamic faithful see the Iron Wall manifest as was prophesied to defend them from evil. As you can imagine, with such cataclysmic and very religious events happening, as well as a literal war against hell, humanity becomes mired in that war for survival, fighting with faith and fervor versus evil. For 800 years, the war boils over, with only the bickering infighting of the factions of hell preventing the dark powers from conquering entirely.
La lore è
Great
interessante,
works of
molto.
Faith, sacrifice and martyrdom are undertaken, while religion and science blend to create crafts truly blessed, holy, or infernal. Armor blessed and forged by ancient techniques can turn away bullets, and thus close-quarters trench fighting became the standard form of battle across the Levant. Now, in 1914, both forces have been building their strength for several dormant years, and relentless fighting is boiling over. and we stand on the precipice of another great and bloody crusade. There's also a timeline of events, and I'm a sucker for long timelines with footnotes, written with no explanation or clarification, as if the reader would of course know the events described. And this helps to flesh out the world of Trench Crusade. It is a really good way to make the universe feel bigger, and of special note here, I have to mention my favorite line, 1477. The city of Argos is taken by God and is no more. What? What? Taken where? What do you mean? By force? Metaphysically teleported? What does this mean? That is the intro to the lore of Trench Crusade.
Ah, ok, quindi è anche un pochettino criptica. Un po' alla Souls, mi pare di capire.
The most thematically appropriate faction to start with feels like New Antioch. This great bastion city is the hub of the Faithful's resistance, a monumental war fortress built atop the ashes of its previous incarnation. The armies of New Antioch are a faithful bunch but diverse of background and fight tirelessly under the pounding mega artillery the city is known for. The immense resources required to supply and fund an internal war are gathered in the form of tithes, sent willingly by the faithful to ensure the war against the forces of hell continues but far away from them. And every day volunteers and pilgrims arrive ready to take up arms and fight in the name of Christ. Visually, New Antioch represents one of the most ordered faction with uniforms, regalia, banners and recognizable units and ranks.
While New Antioch represents the unified
secondo me sembra un po' l'esercito tedesco della prima guerra mondiale con le cose sì, in versione religiosa. Ah, e questi sono quelli che si sono piegati ai demoni invece. Sì, i cultisti. La parte dell'umanità che ha ceduto ai demoni. Capira? Le legioni eretiche.
And soul. Aspirant soldiers march as close as they can to the
Mac, grazie della sub, grazie di cuore.
Flesh boil and pop as they get ever closer to the searing infernal heat. Those with strong enough resolve and dark enough hearts make it close enough to join the Legion.
I Dead Corps of Krieg di Warhammer 40.000 però religiosi, è un po'.
Dark power by the forces of hell. The faction represents primarily the mortal arm of Satan's armies and visually reflects that with spiked
Questa è la
armor,
fazione
dark
mortale
robes,
delle
and
armate
foul runes
sataniche.
adorning
Ok.
Representing the more demonic of Hell's forces, the court of the seven-headed serpent is the ruling council of Hell's
La
armies.
corte del
Seven
serpente a
seats which represent
sette
seven
teste?
deadly sins. These seats are filled with politicking rival demons and are rarely sat in by one demon for long. Demon princes, earls and lords rise up and
questi
are
sono
then
proprio i demoni,
torn down
invece.
from
Sì.
their power as frequently as the seasons change. Despite their infighting, the court is the greatest threat humanity has
Ma gran figata, non sapevo con chi giocare. Vabbè, quello mo vediamo come
themed after its deadly sin to fight against the forces of the faithful.
Vediamo un po' come si muove il
is made
gioco.
up of horrifying demons, mightily clad hell knights and twisted abominations, all set up to inspire fear in the hearts of the men who behold them.
Whether by madness or the direct voices of angels and divine messengers, Trench Pilgrims are faithful people from all across the globe who are driven by divine will to fight against the forces of hell.
Questi invece sono i fanatici religiosi. I cultisti pazzi, però diciamo dal lato dei fedeli. Forze esoteriche del bene. Ah, ecco. Beh, per fortuna che sono del bene.
Rather than weakness, or the great mutated communicants, faithful who have consumed the very flesh and blood of a Metachrist, gaining a superhuman measure of its power,
Metacristo?
and fortitude.
Ho sentito
Robes,
bene?
cloth and holy
Che cos'è
are a
quello?
more common sight in this faction, and I can see endless potential for kit bashes here. This in particular is the faction that has most drawn me to the game, of course coming from playing Blasphemous, but also loving Mordheim. I think there's so much room to play around, and I can't wait to see what people come up with in the community.
Oddio, quello è
making their
fighissimo.
own mad faithful Trench Pilgrims.
On the other side of the Crusades, the Islamic faithful fought and then the Great Heresy took place. They were sure that the world was ended. However, the great creator of the universe answered their calls and manifested the Great Iron Wall to defend their holy lands, as was prophesied. Calling the faithful Islamic forces from across the world to reside behind and defend the iron wall,
sultanato
over time
del
the Sultanate
muro
of the
di
Iron
ferro.
Wall was formed. This faction has a really unique flavor, evoking the styles of the Great Ottoman and Byzantine empires.
Sono gli
They hold a
ottomani.
bitter agreement that both they and the Catholic faithful fight together versus the forces of hell, despite their resentment and reservations towards the other factions due to them being responsible for the cataclysm. They fight in hit-and-run skirmishes from their iron wall, and the doctrine of war has evolved to incorporate its impenetrable bulwark. So this is the faction that I love the most, and it's because it has a lot of that
sono molto fighi anche questi.
inspired look, and all of the models I absolutely love from this faction. Especially the alchemist
tipo quelli
lady. I
isolati
love
da
a
una
good lady
parte.
in a mask, and she kind of reminds me of a djinn or a genie.
While the court of the seven-headed serpent bickers, Beelzebub, the unquestionably most powerful demon of gluttony, pursues his own agenda. The Lord of Flies prefers to do battle his way, and he does it with his greatest plague, the Black Grail, a horrifying illness born by
il Graal nero?
insects. The Grail infects every living thing it touches,
Ok, questo è Nurgle
manifesting in
praticamente.
foul exploding boils and sickening wounds. There is no cure save for the fires of
Ok, sì, è un altro
and
potere
it is
demoniaco.
virulent, spreading rapidly if left unchecked.
Ok.
However, the plague is not the worst of it. For if the infections are not dealt with immediately, the sick rise up, forming warbands of diseased and mutated plague
Prima volta che vedo un
hosts,
gioco del genere, una fazione
marching,
islamica,
fighting, and
scelta
spreading the
coraggiosa.
Grail
Non so se sia la prima
wherever
volta, non ne so
they go.
abbastanza,
With
però mi
bloated,
viene da
sick,
dire
and
di
fly
sì.
and insect themes in the Grail, they are the most akin to the forces of Nurgle from Warhammer 40k. However, they are more Nurgle if it was actually horrifying and disgusting rather than, well, silly. Standing apart here from those gross monsters are the exceedingly cool Plague Knights, those few mortal followers with
Ganzus,
hearts
sì, ne
black
abbiamo
enough
parlato
to
prima.
understand and agree with Beelzebub's
Ci fosse un
goals,
design brutto,
who
sì, no,
raises to
sono
be
veramente
its
fighi.
champions and heralds of
Veramente
his
tanto
warbands.
grimdark,
Alright,
però
everyone, it's
deve
about time we
piacerti
tell you
il
about something I've
grimdark.
been so excited about. We have not been idle, and we're about to wrap up the final Kickstarter goals for our space-based Kickstarter, and we've been working on something else, something deeply close to my heart. I've been creative lead on a new group of miniatures which are super cool. They're called the Kindred of the Abyss, and they're themed after old diving suits. They're going to be usable
questo-
in whatever games that you want, but very suitable for some specific things. We're going to be
Questa
funding
però è
these
una
diving
cosa
suit
loro, è una
minis
cosa del
on
canale, non c'entra
Kickstarter
niente con il
fairly
gioco.
soon, and there
Ce la
is a
vediamo lo
sign-up
stesso perché
page
stiamo
that you
facendo
can
una
join on
reaction
to
e
be
quindi
notified when
credo
it
che sia il
launches.
loro
Supporting us in this
Kickstarter.
project is going to support not only the channel but also the development of future factions as we're slowly
Sì, è vero,
beginning
BioShock
those
vibe, sì.
first steps to
No, questo
creating a
che state
narrative
vedendo non
world
c'entra
and
niente,
something
ragazzi,
really exciting for the future of tabletop
È una
time.
roba
Please
del
go check out
canale
the
che
links in the
stiamo
description
guardando.
and go have a look, and if they're up your alley, click that notify me button. We'll be really excited to share more with you soon.
Ok, va bene, carino però. Ok, il gioco, il Terzo Testamento.
So, how is Trench Crusade played? Well, I'm happy to say that it
Come si
only took
gioca?
me about half an hour of reading through the rulebook to understand the full mechanics and concept of the game. Now,
Ah,
I'm
è
going to try
facile
my
da capire,
best to
ok.
explain what a round of Trench Crusade will look like, so hopefully you'll have a good idea as well moving forward. Rounds of Trench Crusade are played in alternating order, fighting across the battlefield. Turn sequence is pretty standard to most war games, starting with initiative and activation of a single model where a range of actions can be performed, such as moving and attacking. Once a player has chosen an action, they are resolved by rolling 2d6s. The outcome of the dice roll will result in 2 to 6 a failure and 7 to 11 a success, with a 12 plus being a critical success. This is fantastic for someone like me who struggles with numbers and tables, so a simple system is highly praised by me. Failure in a dice roll also allows you to take another action rather than your turn being wasted. Of course, however, this always comes with a consequence. Combat is divided into range and melee, both having
Ok.
modifiers that can be
Sta spiegando
applied
tutto il gioco,
depending on
ragazzi.
the circumstance. Using
Almeno a
modifiers
grandi
is what
linee.
gives the game a strategic advantage. Modifiers such as firing from elevation will result in a bigger dice pool, while shooting into cover will remove them. If a player has declared they wish to attack another model, they then roll on the action success chart to see if they do this successfully. If successful, the player then rolls on the player injury table to see what injury occurs and and the results that follow. When a model is wounded, the game's blood and blessings mechanic kicks in. If a model is wounded but not killed, this damage is tracked as blood markers. During the game, these can be used on an opponent's model to force them to roll at disadvantage, adding an additional dice to their roll and subtracting the highest. Or add an additional dice to your roll when seeing if a model is wounded by an attack. Blessings are the opposite, but still given to a single model. These can be gained by special effects and can be expended to allow you to roll with advantage or force your opponent to subtract a die from their wound roll. There are other uses for these tokens as the game is played, again allowing the strategy and play style of the player to create a unique game experience each time. End of activation occurs when your model has performed all of its actions, then your opponent may begin their turn. Players go back and forth until every model has activated, then the morale phase begins. Players at the end of any turn who have half the warband downed or out of action will determine if their models stay or flee the battlefield. So that was just a quick explanation of the rules for Trench Crusade.
Ok, vabbè, non sono tante le regole.
Available online for you to download. These are still in
E anche le regole sono disponibili gratuitamente.
So if you're interested in the game,
però sono in beta.
Downloading them, maybe playing a few rounds and giving feedback to the devs. Now that you have a bit of a taste into how Trench Crusade is played, you're probably curious to know about how its game came about and what inspired it.
Di origini, libro di Mordheim.
Conceptualized by Mike Francina, stemming from ideas and then amazingly evocative artwork. The first Trench Pilgrim artwork was published in 2016, so at the very least this game has been brewing for 8 years. With the core setting full of evocative art and steeped in thought-out religious symbology and meaning, Thomas Pirinen partnered with Mike and began expanding this world collaboratively. They then commenced tuning the setting and ideas into deep world lore and rules that reflect that lore. It was this connection that got me from intrigued to invested. Thomas is a renowned game designer, but especially notable in this case as the designer of Mordheim. Having recently been introduced to the game and sharing that journey with you all, I was curious to see what a more modern take on the genre by the same creator would look and feel like. Mordheim is best enjoyed as a campaign game, and it has become clear to me through this journey that Trench Crusade has the exact same direction, encouraging kit bashing, storytelling, and the injection of personal narrative into games shared between like-minded people over social evenings.
Ok, quindi si sono basati più sulla creazione dell'ambientazione e non tanto sulla raccontare storie. Ok, ci sta.
Trench Crusade went live on Kickstarter on the 8th of October and reached its funding goal within 8 minutes, clearly showing that this game
Ma come in 8 minuti?
and a vision that people believe in.
Saltato fuori l'8 ottobre e ha raggiunto il goal in 8 minuti. Bene.
Beyond that, the story and the miniatures
$1,5 milioni ha
in
raggiunto.
concept and design and
Ho letto
fill a
bene?
missing hole in the
sì.
miniature space. I had people letting me know what Trench Crusade was before I'd even seen it, which is the best form of advertising you can have. Right off the bat, it's
Sì, infatti se ne sta parlando tanto di questo gioco. È il motivo per cui siamo qui adesso.
This means that you can get physical miniatures delivered to your door or save some money if you have a 3D printer and you can print them yourself at home. And while the miniatures are awesome, what really excites me...
Ok, aspetta, è interessante questa cosa. Perché ho visto che molti la fanno. Cioè, praticamente puoi o comprare le miniature già fatte, oppure comprare il modello digitale e usare la stampa 3D per fartele tu. Questa cosa è interessante. Una cosa che mi ha sempre interessato è la stampa 3D, solo che non mi ci sono mai messo. Già.
me as an artist is the
Campagna bella che chiusa.
This will be a 200 plus page
Quello l'avevo
hardcover
visto.
featuring the rules, lore, amazing artwork from the team of artists. However, it won't be available until June 2025. This will allow the artists and dev more time to compile
l'uscita è giugno
everything and get it
2025.
right the first time. As someone who's worked and dealt with physical publishing, I can vouch for how important it is to get this step right. So I respect the team for taking the time for it. The rules are available for free to download, so you can get playing as soon as your minis arrive as well. If you're interested in finding out
Ok,
more,
di nuovo
the
le regole
Kickstarter is up
scaricabili
for just another
gratuitamente.
day or so. Overall, it's been a monumental success and one that I think could just shake up the entire miniature industry. And it's exciting to see indie creators launching grassroots projects to such a great acclaim.
So Trench Crusade is a miniatures agnostic game, with its creators actively encouraging kit bashing, fan creations, and more. But it goes even further still. The Trench Crusade team just announced more details on its third-party licensing arrangement, which will allow other groups to effectively earn a seal of approval as compatible with Trench Crusade. Or even beyond that, with Trench Crusade offering potential collaboration and licensing opportunities to other creators. This feels somewhat groundbreaking.
Okay.
And while one-page rules have offered compatibility ticks in the past, the idea of a game having third-party producers in this environment is one that's actually
incoraggiano anche le
exciting,
produzioni di
hopefully
terze
allowing for
parti.
amazing collaborations and models that feel more grounded in the Trench Crusade setting rather than knockoffs. With all of this said, it is also worth taking a look at the amazing miniatures available in this Kickstarter. The first official miniatures from Trench Crusade in its current form, sculpted by a team of amazing 3D designers who are shown on screen. We had the unique opportunity to print several of these models early and take a look at them, and then to show you all what they look like in person fresh off the print bed. Now, it's worth noting that these were unsupported and auto-supported due to time constraints, and they're not indicative of the final professionally supported product. But let's take a look at them.
Queste miniature che vedete sono in realtà dei primi modelli, ok?
So I've printed the minis off, I've assembled some of them, and they look fantastic. I was initially a little bit worried about how the models would translate from the art into actual miniature form, but they look fantastic. In particular, one that I think looks better than the render is the Bomb Witch. It is such a cool model. I'm going to show all of these off. Overall, really impressed. I think you guys are going to be super happy with what you get from Trench Crusade. Their character
Boom, grazie mille della
they look
Subcom Prime.
fantastic, and the sculptors have done a really good job. So that's exciting. Now we have a bunch of Trench Crusade minis.
Che se video in chat, lo so che può essere interessato, il video ha più link di riferimento, non serve a cercare, vero? Sì, ma quando l'abbiamo finito a vedere ve lo giro in chat.
Hello, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me. I'm here with Mike.
C'è anche l'intervista con i creatori.
And also, Thomas is the creator of Lordheim, amongst other things, a very seasoned game developer who's been working on the lore and the rules for Trench Crusade. So hello.
Thanks for having us. Be here.
So I'll start off by throwing a crazy curveball at you, because it has just been eating at me. What is a meta, Christ?
Well, in general, it's our answer is that wouldn't you like to know? It's one of the mysteries we want to delve into in the future. We're actually not too keen to reveal maybe the biggest mystery of the game. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, they're so cool and enigmatic that adding too much detail to that might spoil it, for some people.
I had a
ci sono ancora alcune cose che non si sanno, ancora qualche altro segretino.
Is presented in a way that sort of says, obviously you know about this. Each one could have a novel related to it. Was that like a really deliberate way to world build when you first created this?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started making Trench Crusade, I had never made like a timeline or anything, but when Tomas came on, that was something he was really excited to do. One of the things we both agreed on was that, I don't know if you've ever seen any of the Alien movies, and a lot of what made those movies so great, the original ones, was like, you just didn't really know like where the alien came from and all this stuff, and you read one of those little snippets in our lore and in the timeline, and it immediately raises like 40 million other questions in your head.
Yeah, from me, when I was brought on, it was one of the very first things I want to do. There are a couple of reasons. One, that's what I always did back at Games Workshop as well. When I started a new army book, I would write the timeline, because it anchors you and you have a point of reference where the major events take place, so you can have some coherence and you can sort of think of it as laying a foundation. But it also, this is called in a game design a closed door method. So you create these closed doors that you can later open and reveal what's behind. They allowed us to then have the event take place here, and therefore in this area this year this is possible. And some of it is just to pick your interest, like the city of Argos
c'è veramente una cosa che si chiama meta
Cristo. Biblical reference, but we don't detail how this took place. Was it that the god took the city to the heaven? Did God destroy the city? Or is this church propaganda trying to hide a terrifying heretic new weapon or something else. This allows us to visit later, but it also triggers the imagination of the readers, and I think we want to put the creativity
hanno
to
creato
the
la
readers and the
struttura,
players as well, so
molte
they don't
cose
just
non le
get a
rivelano
ready-chewed
ancora
food, that they
e
get to
tante
do a bit of
altre
a
sono
thinking
lasciate per
themselves.
sviluppo
I think
futuro.
there is a
Bene.
depth in this lore and not being afraid to play with heavy themes, true darkness. Do you think that there has been like a really positive response to having that grit to everything?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons I created it was like at my day job that I was never allowed to like go as dark as I wanted or include the rich themes, you know, like using religions and all like the backstory you have there. So I think people just like that kind of stuff because I often feel properties like they try to go more and more mass market to
Trench
capture like the
Tales,
biggest
non so
audience
se è legato
possible. So
a questo.
all the edges get sanded down
Non
over
saprei.
time, you know. And Trench Crusade is like edgy, right? Like it's like goofy, edgy, you know, it's like over the top. And that's part of the fun for me anyway as an artist, and like when we come up with the lore and stuff. And I think people I think they like it. I mean, there's so much tying into like real world history. Even if you're not religious, religion like permeates everyone's culture, you know, and it's just a part of our world.
I think the darkness is the something that drew me into gaming originally, like the original 40k rulebook.
Non era Metacris, era Metal Chris.
The world
Ok,
had seen nothing like it before. The D&D second edition, the monster manual with the demons and devils from the real mythology. You just went, this is incredible.
X-Files e quello di
This is
Returnal.
so visceral. And that's all now being left wayside. We get more and more mainstream, and I totally get it. You are a big company, you are publicly traded, but I wanted to get the real feeling of danger, if you see what I mean. And I think as a creatives, as artists, it is not our job to be timid. Sometimes have to push a bit if you want to make something that the people find interesting.
Did you find that you were surprised by the response? Because obviously the Kickstarter is still live even as this video goes up, and the response has been amazing. In terms of the community like upswell, like how much people, the number of people like joining Discords, chatting about it, the excitement brewing underneath it, it's probably unlike anything I've ever seen out of a non-company game. Like I've seen excitement for, you know, Star Wars Legion comes out, some big IP attached to a big company, but for what is essentially an indie tiny company coming up with something, it's pretty monumental. So yeah, I guess, do you have any insights as to why you think that, is it the timing? Like what is it that's creating it?
I think from my point of view, there are two things. One is that these big companies, they are squeezing people who are creative. They want to kit bash, they want to build their own terrain. So the people who have that creativity, they have no home, and we are offering it to them. And the other side, of course, is that obviously me tied to the project with Mike's art, I think there was a good mixture. And we've been very active in the community. Like we've been there, we are saying that you can do your own kit bashes conversions. We're totally cool and we love your homebrew. You can ask questions from us. Here are the rules for free in the earliest version.
Un po' a cazzo di cane,
Let us know
ragazzi.
what you think.
Purtroppo.
So we have done the legwork, but of course it seems that the magic potion just had happened to have the right ingredients, and I don't think you can manufacture those.
Obviously a monumental amount of work and effort has gone into it over many years. I mean, from what I remember, the original Trench Pilgrim artwork was 2016.
Yeah.
So we're talking like 8 years that this has been brewing. It's amazing to see it get this kind of upswell and get people in. I mean, the legacy, Thomas, as well, of your games, I have just been introduced by Trent into Mordheim, and it's 2024, and I built a Mordheim warband in the last 2 months and played my first game.
Nice.
So what are some of the features you'd like to get across to the players that might be...
Questa cosa è bella perché il coinvolgimento della community fino a questo punto creerà un sacco di robe fighe, secondo me.
Campaign play is at the heart of it. We've seen about the 50-50 because people are already playing Trench Crusade tournaments and campaigns with the playtest rules, but I think the campaign is the beating heart of the game, because creating this sort of your own band of brothers and seeing them grow and they get like these terrible injuries and trying to work around them, and the getting these skills that they allow them to do special things, and there is the element of randomness. You go and explore these exciting locations explorations. This is all part of the emergent story. I'm a big believer in emergent gameplay. It is my job to create that the ingredients that they come from the exploration tables and injury tables and skill tables are interesting, especially in wild and weird combinations. So I think fully embracing the sort of the RPG aspect of the campaigns and the converting your models as you go along and giving them names and creating their backstories, I think that's the most fulfilling and fun way to play the game.
Well, I'm extremely excited to get Trench Crusade into everyone's hands and to see the community response to it once it's out there, the amazing conversions. It's going to be amazing. But I did want to say thank you so much for taking the time today to talk to me. So with the short turnaround and awkward time zones, the interview I recorded was actually at my house and the power died. So unfortunately, I didn't get the sign off from Mike and Thomas because we basically didn't have time in our production schedule to re-record it. They were super accommodating and willing to record some extra stuff, but we were kind of doing it super late notice and we just didn't have time to get that done on our end. But they did want to express in that sign off just how excited they were to see what you all come up with. That was the big takeaway. They just want to see this out in the world, see your kit bashes, see your art, see your homebrew, see your creations. And that message to end it on, honestly, it really sold me. I'm rooting for these guys now and I'm rooting for Trench Crusade, so I'm really excited to see what you all do as well. What allows us to keep making these videos that hopefully you are all enjoying. We love chatting with you in our mini Discord, and we've started doing some occasional extended cuts, which may include this video. We have some extra footage from that interview we'd love to put back in that maybe is a little bit long for a standard YouTube video. So make sure you check them out, links in the description. We hope you've enjoyed our exploration of Trench Crusade, and it's been a helpful resource for you if you're looking to get into it or just interested to know a little bit more about it.
It was so much fun exploring this world and even talking to the creators as well. They're a truly passionate bunch of people, so I'm very excited to see how this goes, and clearly it's going to do really well because Kickstarter's done amazingly.
Yeah, and if this video does really well, even if it doesn't, I'm pretty keen to make a Trench Crusade warband on the channel in the future. We certainly had a great time, almost as much as Murray did as he was doing his penitent flensing before the video started. But until next time, see you in the trenches, pilgrims.
Oh, allora, ragazzi, sembra essere veramente figo. A dire la verità ci sarebbe un altro video di cui possiamo... io lo metto e possiamo un attimino... Io lo metto come sottofondo, mentre magari chiacchieriamo un attimino e si vedono un po' di modelli, ok? Qui mostra le fazioni più le varie miniature. Ragazzi, sembra davvero interessante. L'ambientazione è estremamente cupa, è una delle cose più grimdark che abbia mai visto, nel senso davvero, davvero tanto. C'è un tema fondamentalmente tutto così, demoni e fanatismo religioso a 1000, e è figo il fatto, JTV grazie mille del follow, è davvero figo il fatto che ci sia il coinvolgimento della community, perché di fatto tutto quello che abbiamo visto, mi pare di capire, sia soltanto l'inizio. Tanto per cominciare, in questo momento, mentre stiamo in live, sto facendo questo video eccetera, che poi probabilmente ricaricherò su YouTube, il Kickstarter è finito, il sito l'avevo visto, è effettivamente un po' scarno, il gioco uscirà ufficialmente però a giugno, ok? E il fatto che esca il gioco a giugno con le regole che al momento sono in beta, ma ci si può già giocare, perché immagino che ci sia un modo per avere, non dico le miniature da comprare perché probabilmente non c'è tanta disponibilità in questo momento, ma il design di alcune cose credo che sia, diciamo, alla portata di tutti, cioè si può comprare, immagino il design, comprare i design costerà un po' di dollari, dopodiché però devi avere la stampa, cioè la stampante 3D. un modello di stampante 3D abbastanza buono per realizzare cose dettagliate. E poi la cosa da lì con tutta probabilità si evolverà. È figo. Chissà se per giugno mi sarò attrezzato con un po' di cose, probabilmente per giugno, perché ho intenzione di cominciare abbastanza presto, è un po' che ve lo prometto, ma tolto questo periodo in cui voglio rimettermi in pari con la routine e con varie cose, durerà magari qualche settimana, spero però poco, nel senso entro gennaio spero di chiudere il mio ciclo di routine come voglio chiuderlo, e poi comincerò con le miniature e con, spero, qualche gioco da tavolo. Da lì poi ai prossimi mesi, e da qui a giugno magari sarò riuscito ad arrivare a un punto in cui posso iniziare a portarvi questi contenuti con una certa stabilità, e magari riesco a procurarmelo Trench Crusade per il momento in cui esce, e magari dipingere qualcosa in live, e magari fare una partitina con qualcuno, no? Tra i miei amici o collaboratori direttamente qui, perché a quel momento spero di essere attrezzato di conseguenza, ok? È un po' questo il punto. Vediamo come va. La cosa mi interessa. Adesso qui c'è la carrellata di come dicevo, di fazioni di miniature. Mentre chiacchieriamo penso che sia la cosa più adeguata da fare. A voi come sembra, ragazzi? Ho passato per un saluto, ormai ti seguo abbastanza assiduamente. Grazie mille, simpatico. Sì, c'è tanta roba da stampare in 3D. Dai, ditemi onestamente che cosa ne pensate, va, mentre scorre tutto quanto. Ha un'estetica che deve piacervi, però. Questo è davvero tanto grimdark. Cioè, Warhammer 40.000 alla fine è grimdark, però c'ha una grande varietà di fazioni che ti permette di passare dalle forze del caos alle forze imperiali, agli Eldar, i Tau, gli orchi, eccetera eccetera, e anche ulteriori fazioni che sono aggiunte. Quindi Warhammer 40.000 è più vario. Questo sembra essere più concentrato su un tot di cose con una specifica estetica, aperto alle contaminazioni ma con un cuore ben preciso, capito? Quindi immagino che sia una cosa, che ne so, un po' più di nicchia. Finalmente le idee nuove. In realtà recentemente, ragazzi, ho fatto una veloce panoramica di un po' di progetti che sono saltati fuori su Kickstarter e non solo. Negli ultimi anni ce n'è una enormità, ragazzi, veramente tanti. E ci sono tanti giochi che sono stati fatti da piccoli team, giochi da tavolo, che hanno realizzato le regole da scaricare o da comprare eccetera, e poi tu compri i design, perché non è la prima volta che lo vedo, compri i design digitali dei modelli, te li fai da solo e praticamente tu paghi un tot di cose ma poi te le realizzi da solo e puoi praticamente giocare così. Ce ne sono parecchi di questi progetti. Alcuni le miniature le vendono soltanto e bisogna stare un po' attenti, nel senso che non c'è tantissima disponibilità, sono davvero tanto di nicchia. Alcuni sono un po' più famosi, c'è più disponibilità, altri appunto vendono i modelli 3D da stampare e da realizzare tu stesso e poi da dipingere. Insomma, c'è un panorama indie dei giochi da tavolo e dei wargame, cioè dei giochi da tavolo con miniature, che sta diventando sempre più ampio. E siccome oltretutto la tecnologia, la creatività e le possibilità di finanziare questi progetti stanno aumentando sempre di più, nonostante la concorrenza, eccetera, credo che andrà sempre meglio. Per esempio, io non mi intendo tanto di stampa 3D, anzi, per niente, non so nulla. Ogni tanto do un'occhiatina, mi capita qualche video che fa qualche approfondimento, quindi ne so proprio pochissimo, però quello che so è che la stampa 3D sta aumentando di qualità piuttosto velocemente, e quello che sta succedendo è che adesso mi pare di capire che con una stampante 3D che è in una fascia dalle 250-500 euro sostanzialmente, puoi avere una macchina che ti permette di realizzare per esempio modelli e miniature piuttosto dettagliati, cioè fatti bene, magari non a livello eccelso, cioè livello top Games Workshop di qualità, anche perché non credo che ci si riesca al momento. Non so se ci sono dei modelli che raggiungono quel livello di qualità, ma ci sono delle stampanti 3D che una volta avresti dovuto spendere migliaia e migliaia di euro, e adesso invece magari con un budget che arriva fino a 500 euro ti prendi qualcosa che è carino e ti dà dei modelli che sono in grado di essere decenti, cioè insomma interessanti, adeguati e soddisfacenti da realizzare e dipingere, giusto? Corretto quello che dice? Ok, sì. Sì, la qualità della stampa 3D sta aumentando, il problema è la modellazione, i programmi restano ancora abbastanza complessi. Però sto anche vedendo che ci sono tanti, ma tanti 3D artist che realizzano queste cose e che fanno dei modelli belli e ispirati. Se ci pensate, ce ne sono. Io ne ho visti, sono capitati in questi siti che sono praticamente come DeviantArt, in cui puoi comprare questi modelli, cioè l'equivalente di DeviantArt o cose del genere, in cui puoi o comprare qualcosa che c'è già nel portfolio di un artista, oppure commissionargli qualcosa se vuoi. È figo, è molto interessante tutto questo, no? Ispira. Me ne intendo troppo poco e ho tutta l'intenzione di approfondire un po'. Quindi sì, vi confermo che per il futuro ho intenzione di fare un po' così. Ok, bene ragazzi, veramente veramente bello. Non ho molto altro da dire, direi di chiudere qua. E questa era un'infarinata su Trench Crusade, adesso ne so un po' di più. Mi ero fatto una piccolissima infarinata io, giusto per capire un po' di che si tratta, per vedere se era interessante, e ho subito capito che era molto interessante, ne stanno parlando un po' di persone e abbiamo fatto questa carrellata di video. Poi più là in una prossima live c'è un video di lore, ok? Proprio nello specifico solo di lore. Sì, giusto, il link. Adesso aspetta che ve lo giro subito, ragazzi. Aspetta un attimo. Arriva. Ecco il link del... Eccolo qua. Ve lo giro anche su YouTube. Ma per quello che vale ve lo giro anche su TikTok, chi se ne frega. Ok. Impostazioni di questa... ok, no, non posso girare il link su TikTok. Vabbè, chi se ne frega, tanto non si aprono. Bene, questo è il link di Tabletop Time che vi dà una carrellata di tutto. Poi, come vi ho detto, dai, nei prossimi giorni vedremo la lore e approfondiremo un pochettino. Dopodiché stop, nel senso ho intenzione di lasciarlo un po' lì e aspettare il momento in cui arriverà poi il gioco finale. Però questa è una delle cose che voglio portarvi da quest'anno. Ci sono questi progetti interessanti, raga. E quindi anche se ne avete da suggerire voi, tipo Chris, guarda, c'è questo progetto indipendente sempre con le miniature, oppure è un gioco da tavolo indipendente. Ditemi un po', ragazzi, cioè fatemi sapere, ok? Scrivetemi nei commenti, scrivetemi in privato, scrivete su Telegram, perché magari anche altri lo possono sapere. Tutti i link sono in descrizione o tramite il bot in chat, come sapete. Voglio un po' andarci sotto con queste cose, perché almeno vi porto un po' di varietà e possiamo scambiarci delle cose carine. Dopodiché magari inizierò col passare del tempo a realizzarle io in live queste cose, ok? Chi lo sa, magari questo è l'anno in cui decido di comprarmi anche una stampante 3D e sono convinto che ci sono delle persone che mi possono consigliare su quale scegliere per partire, diciamo, da principiante, ma abbastanza bene da realizzare delle miniature soddisfacenti. Vabbè, vedremo. Comunque, questa era Trench Crusade, un'infarinata generale, vedremo la lore. Bene così, fatemi sapere che ne pensate.